Well, welcome back to the show. I'm so honored you're here, and we have an exciting barn burner of a show for you today. On today's episode, we have Tom Sy, who is a 20-year law enforcement veteran. He's known as the police cop marketer, and he is all over the place talking about how agencies can market and then recruit. And we're excited to have him here. Tom, how are you doing, sir?
Doing well, Travis. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to sit here and talk with you for a little
Well,
bit.
man, I love your content. You're like the only guy, anybody, guy, girl, anybody doing this stuff because
Yeah.
law enforcement seems to be so behind the curve on this stuff. And people ask me, well, Travis, why do you always talk about recruiting and marketing and all these issues? Well, because I'm a leadership guy, but that is leadership. I mean, if we don't staff our
Sure.
agencies uh, to the fullest, that is going to hurt communities and hurt agencies. And you are leading this revolution, I would call it. We're trying to educate our agencies and something we've never had to be educated for. And I guess I would just start out by asking you, what got you interested in this? What's your background and how are you sitting here today, kind of the so-called expert in this area?
Yeah. This is my 20th year in law enforcement. I hit 20 in August. Very excited for that to happen. But
Congratulations. That's a good
yeah,
feeling.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Everybody says things change once you hit 20. So I'm waiting for that mindset shift. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I don't know if it changes. It just in the back of your mind, you could just like leave if you want to, but you don't necessarily want to do that. Yeah.
right. So yeah, I got that coming up. But I've worked in backgrounds and recruiting for the past 11 years at my agency, and even prior to that, I was in broadcast. Of course, I wanted to be a cop. Just kind of go back a little bit here. I wanted to be a cop since I was knee high. My dad was a cop, and he always, I always looked up to him and wanted to be just like dad. But of course, dads always said, no, 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 go do something else. You don't want to chase bad guys the rest of your life. So I did. I had a whole separate career. Went to a broadcasting school and had a whole separate career in broadcasting and media relations and communications for radio stations and some minor league hockey teams, and that's how I really got into the marketing side of things and learned how to do different marketing campaigns and advertisements. And then again, 11 years ago, started doing backgrounds and recruiting here, and it was something we jumped on at our agency. I've always been into social media since the MySpace days, and when Facebook really became big and Instagram came on the scene, it was something that we led the way in the Valley, and just kind of kept going from there and really learned by doing, and figured out what works for recruiting police officers, what didn't work for recruiting police officers, and haven't looked back since.
Well, kudos to your agency. I often talk about that our agencies have some of the craziest experts in the world. Here you are coming from a broadcasting background and a marketing background, and it took them some time, but they finally got you in a position in your agency where you're able to mold your expertise with law enforcement. And I always talk about from a leadership standpoint, if you can figure out who you have and put them on the right bus, man, they will love their job each and every day. And of course, you're smiling every time I see you. So I think you probably love your job, but you're so good at it because you love this, and your agency's been able to sort of mesh that love with what you do. And I bet you've had quite a bit of success. So you talked about you've sort of figured out what is worked and what hasn't worked. Talk about some of your earlier struggles, because obviously I would say 7 or 8 years ago, there was a shift in law enforcement with recruiting. And here's what I talk about. I was over recruiting unit about a decade ago. So I started seeing this shift early on where we didn't really have to recruit. I mean, we would dress
Yeah.
up in a uniform and go to a job fair and wave at people. The applications just came in, right? We had more applications than we had openings. Well, what happened was, and everybody wants to talk about the defund police movement and this and that, but in addition to that, in 1994, they passed the cops bill, which was before your time, but they put 100,000 cops on the street through a federal grant. Well, this is the time period about a decade ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, those folks are starting to retire. And then
Yeah.
on top of that, we have these high profile events. And of course, from a leadership standpoint, we don't respond very well to it. That also hurts things. And so, and then you have the retention issue where people are leaving the profession earlier than they were going to leave. So that's putting a big strain on the front end, which is recruiting. So we started seeing that shift. And I can remember going to job fairs and nobody even coming up to us, and the applications were just kind of slowly going down, down, down. And they didn't really catch on for some time that we needed to make a shift. I think everybody knows now we need to make a shift in how we do it. Now that lends to the problem, Tom, where
Yeah,
you sort of knew what worked and what didn't work through trial and error. A lot of agencies are just, they really don't know where to start. So
right.
what would you tell an agency as far as the biggest mistakes they can make when they try to make this shift? And when I say shift, once again, it's the job fairs aren't going to help you. The billboards aren't going to help you. People don't just apply. You have to have a different mindset, a different philosophy when it comes to recruiting. So you've made all the mistakes and now you've sort of figured this thing out. What would be the things you would tell them to stay away from?
um, the, I guess I could sum it up, and I'll get into some details about specifics here in just a second. So,
Yeah, we'll get
um,
into that.
yeah, to go to the first part of this thing is the biggest thing that I see agencies struggling with in making mistakes in is kind of what you just alluded to, is they're still trying to recruit like it's 2015. It's 2024. You
Yeah.
have to start recruiting like it's 2024. I say it all the time, and I'm going to say it a million more times. Um, Agencies are just stuck in the past. I'm going to go to a job fair and that's going to be enough. It's not.
No,
I'm going to put out a recruiting video that'll get all kind of eyeballs on my product. It's not.
no.
Um, there's so much more to it,
Let's put
and
out a
yes,
fancy website, right? I mean, you could name it. I've talked to agencies that put out billboards at bus stations and they've wrapped cars and fancy
right,
websites. None of it's going to work. And
no,
and what's crazy to me, Tom, is you know it, I know it. I've seen the research that says it doesn't work, but these agencies continue to do it. What do you think's going on there?
yeah, I think it's just a lack of knowledge.
Yeah,
We're cops. We're not
right.
marketers. We don't know what our advertising options are or what they do. And for me, I'm a firm believer is that you should never invest in something that you have no idea what it is. You should always be educated before you invest in anything, whether it's a marketing product, a vehicle, a new home, whatever it is. You should always know what you're getting yourself into. And what happens is, and I get them all the time at my agency. We get emails and mailers and phone calls and people pitching the next latest and greatest best thing. This is going to change your recruiting. You're not even going to believe it type stuff. And it looks great on paper. And then you go to a website and you see this fancy HD recruiting video with the slow motion drone footage. And here's the SWAT team moving through the smoke. And oh, look, now we're petting dogs and horses. And now we're playing basketball with the kids. It's the same video over and over again.
Yeah,
But you
yeah,
see that as somebody in command or in charge of things, and you've never seen that before. So it looks amazing, and you're like, "There's no way this isn't going to work." And then, the person selling that to you says, "Oh, this is the latest and greatest," and you put it out there, and and all your friends tell you how great the video looks, and hey, chief, this is surely going to work. And the next day, there's no applications, and the day after that, there's no applications, and the day after that, there's no applications. That's one solution. That's one day.
yeah,
Recruiting in 2024 is every day. You have to constantly be out there. That's where things have changed since 2016 to now, is where you're correct, where we used to just open up and get thousands of applications. Those days are gone and they're not
yeah,
coming back. And I don't think agencies quite realize that. They're still living in the past. Again, the biggest thing that you can do is a very simple three-step formula. I talk about this all the time as well. To recruit like it's 2024, Travis, you have to meet your applicants where they're at. You have to build a relationship with them and show them why people like them work for you. It's
right.
recruiting 101. That's no different than 25 years ago at a job fair. That's where your applicants were at. And you'd build that relationship at the table and you talk about all the different things. That's changed now. And it's all online now, is where this Gen Z and the younger generations are just flooded on social media.
Yeah. Yeah, and marketing and recruiting are distinctly different. Obviously, you're aware of that. I mean, marketing typically is to sell a product. We know what the data says, 7 to 21 touch points to get a decision on buying a product or not buying
Yeah.
a product. And these marketing companies, I wouldn't get into this early, but man, I tell you what, we are spending so much money with marketing companies, and it couldn't be more different than what we actually need. Because a lot of these marketing companies are pretty slick because they're marketing companies. I mean, the things they do look great. And then
Right.
what they did is many of them, some of the big players, they sort of branched off with a DBA, have a different section. They call themselves police recruiters, right? But there's the same old marketing tactics. And
Yes, it
people say, well,
is.
how come they don't recruit? Well, recruiting's harder. Recruiting takes more time. There's not as much money in that for these companies. There's lots of money in these websites and videos, and we're just buying right off into it. But give us the big difference in marketing and recruiting.
So the biggest difference in marketing and recruiting is um, recruiting is more of a face-to-face venture, where marketing is more of uh, a non-personal interaction. So you're putting out an ad, you're running a bus billboard or a bench ad or something like that. That's marketing. It's here's my
Right.
message, and I'm putting it out there, and whoever drives by this bus or this billboard or just happens to hop on my website and sees this video, great. They may be interested in a job, they may not be interested in a job. You're just pretty much throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping some of
Yeah,
it
it's a big
sticks.
wide net, and you're just
It
hoping, right?
is.
And which that
Yes,
ends up making it an expensive net because you're not targeted.
it is. And part of the cost thing, and I don't know, I don't have any research on this. This is just my thoughts on it, just seeing how things work. I would bet a lot of money that I was dead on, but um, people came into the market, and these companies saw an opportunity, because what happened in 2020, it was all over the news, right? All these protests and riots, and and defund the police, and no one wants to be a cop anymore. And these companies came in and they saw an opportunity um, to make some money. Let's not throw any punches. That's
Yep.
what it's all about. I did a video this morning. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it's the gist of it is, these companies, the marketing companies, they couldn't care less if you filled your vacancies.
No,
They don't
in
care.
fact, it
They'll
helps them if you don't. They can then re-sign up and
absolutely,
yeah,
because you come back and spend a big bucks again. So
yeah.
they really don't care. They tell you they do in the sales pitch, and this is going to work and all that, but they really don't care. That's not their product. Their product is not filling your vacancies. Their product is showing you something that you're going to go, holy cow, this video looks amazing. There's no
Mhm.
way this isn't going to work. So you're overwhelmed by how great it looks. So when you put it out and it doesn't work, you're left with nothing to figure, but it must be something else. It can't be the video. That looks
Right.
great. And again, it's because you don't understand what that video is doing. You're going to put out a recruiting video. Let's just say you throw it up on your website, right? How many website visitors are you going to have in a day? I don't know. If you're lucky, 50. If you're lucky, you're going to throw it up on social media. Yeah, your friends like it. Everybody who works for your agency, they like it. They share it. Maybe you get a couple thousand views on it. And then what about tomorrow? What about the
Right.
next day? What about the
Right.
day after that? So this is where the recruiting part comes in. And what I like to call police marketing is kind of the combination of the two things, is where you're just constantly hitting your audience and trying to build those relationships with content and showing why your agency is a special place to work. That's what recruiting is now.
Yeah, and I love, people will say, "Oh, Travis doesn't believe in marketing." No, but I think marketing has a role in this, Tom, just like you say.
Yeah.
But without the targeted audience, without the people, without the recruits, using marketing for recruiting is just pointless. So the way I talk about it is you build this funnel. You need your recruits first, maybe your candidates, and maybe then your applicants. Then use the marketing to get them excited. Walk them through the process, get them to the test, get them to the physical fitness. So use the marketing for that. But marketing alone is, I mean, if a department spends 300 grand on a marketing campaign, are they going to get a few applications? Oh, probably, but it could be done for so much cheaper and so much more efficient with a true recruiting campaign. And so I love that mixture. You call it police marketing. I call it a recruiting marketing interface, to where recruiting comes
Yeah.
first, then marketing, and then you blend this together. You could actually recruit without marketing, but you can never recruit with just marketing, right? But the best of
That's
both worlds is
100%.
to use the recruiting and then the marketing. So yeah, you've nailed it, man. And you've seen the success at your agency. You're not just talking this stuff. You've actually seen this successful, have you not?
Yeah, so we've hired. So I always let people in on a little secret here. It's almost embarrassing with the way everybody else is spending money and doing different things and going to job fairs, and they have all these things. So here's what I can tell you about us, is that we've hired in the past couple of years, between both civilian and sworn, we've hired almost 200 people, right? We're a 4-person staff. That's a lot of people for a
Mhm.
mid-sized agency. The reason that we have so much is because we have a great city council who keeps adding positions to us. So we keep trying to fill those things. But I have not been to a job. I've been to, take it back. I've been to two job fairs in the past 2 years. Two. I have a basic garden variety website, whatever the city signed up for. I updated some pictures. It is nothing fancy. It doesn't have video. It doesn't have any of that type of stuff. We don't have a recruiting video and haven't had one in the entire
I
11 years
bet
that
you've
I've
had a
been
few
there.
chiefs that wanted one, though, right?
We get asked all the time. So whenever we get a new chief, hey, what do you think about this? Or they'll get an email from somebody, hey, do you think about this? And I'll just tell them, yeah, I mean, if you want to spend the money, we can, but it's a gigantic waste of money.
Right.
And fortunately, they've seen our success and they know that I know what I'm talking about. So they tend to go with that idea. But yeah, you don't need that stuff. It's just, is it great to have? Yes. But very much like what you were talking about is you got to have, before you get into those types of things, recruiting videos and fancy websites and going to job fairs like crazy and billboards and whatever else that you want to spend money on, before you can do any of that for it to be effective, you have to have everything else in place first. You have to have a good base for your recruiting, which means you have to have the proper staff. So we talked about this earlier, right? You have to have the right resources in the right places. So many people don't even have a recruiting staff and they're trying to have a recruiting video. Okay, well, great. Well, somebody calls up now. Who's going to talk to them?
Right.
Whoever, whoever's in the office and answers the phone. You have to have the right resources in place. You have to have a team. You have to have a plan. That's the most important, is you got to have a recruiting plan on how you're going to fill your vacancies. If you don't have that to start with, all the marketing in the world doesn't matter. It's not going to help you.
Yeah, we're kind of stuck in this sort of OODA loop thing where, and
Yeah.
I had a recruiter come up to me in Nevada, and I gave this kind of spill in this class. She says, "You're right. We spent $150,000 on a recruiting video and a website, and our recruiting got worse. The problem is they spent all their money. The problem is she's the one that pitched it. So she doesn't want to go to the chief now and say, oh, I was wrong, and we're just sort of stuck in this thing." And my concern, and the reason I've harped on this so much, is because this is a solvable problem. We can solve this
Yeah.
problem, but if we keep spending millions of dollars in the wrong fashion, I'm afraid a lot of agencies are going to be like, well, there's nothing we can do. We just
Right.
recruiting. We have this recruiting crisis. There's nothing we can do. And what they're buying, Tom, is a philosophy. Unlike if you buy a car, you know what it's going to do. If you buy a technology product, you know
Yeah.
what it's going to do. This is different. You can't just buy this and get results. You're actually buying a philosophy, and you better buy the right philosophy, or it is all for naught. And talking about the agency just spent just shy of $300,000, I can guarantee you, there's no way that that chief's going to tell that city council he was wrong. Even if it
Right.
doesn't work, he's just going to say we did all we could do, right? And
Yeah.
so my concern is if we don't get this right, it's going to really hurt national law enforcement, because the fact is majority of law enforcement can't spend $300,000. And so I don't want them
Right.
looking at this going, well, we don't have the money to recruit, when what you're saying is that your agency, you have the right philosophy. Now, your agency is a little special, Tom. They have people in place that know the philosophy. I think most agencies don't. So they need to reach out and understand that philosophy. Now, I know I put out a lot of resources. Safeguard Recruiting's put out a lot of resources. You have excellent resources. So tell us, I know you're helping out a lot of agencies. And what is really insane to me is, I was involved in EVOC training for many years, and we had some success. Well, I had agencies contact me. Hey, what are you doing? What's the secret? Send us your curriculum. And we were helping
Yeah.
them. But when it comes to recruiting, a lot of these agencies think, well, we'll just hire a company and that's it. Instead of finding the departments that are successful and reaching out to folks like you, Tom, and going, help us out here. What's the secret? Have you had people do that, or are they just hiring $1 million companies to help them out?
Yeah, I've had quite a few agencies contact me since I got this thing off the ground and started doing this back in last June. And it's great. You talk to them and they're so excited to learn, and they know that there's something out there. There's something better. There's a better way to do things. And that's
Right.
what really fires me up and drives me to want to keep doing this, is just that passion. For me, I have a passion for teaching and for helping people. That's number one. I've always been that way. I've always liked helping people out and trying to learn something so I could teach somebody else. And then second for me is I'm a cop. I want to see our profession be strong for years and years and decades to come. Whereas when you enlist the help of somebody who's just a marketing guy, again, it's they're not bad people. I don't want people to
Well, they're
mistake what I'm
doing their
saying.
job. Their
They're,
job
they're
is
doing their
marketing.
job, but they don't
Right,
care. They don't care if there's cops 20 years from now. They don't. They just
right,
don't.
right.
They couldn't care less. So, yeah. So when agencies call up and they're just lost. They don't know what to do, and you just start breaking down the basics to them. And it's like, well, do you have an Instagram account? That's the one thing that that always blows me away. Um, when I see these articles, and they're on LinkedIn all the time, where you see, oh, this place can't hire, and we throw up our hands. No one wants to be a cop anymore. We've spent all this money, and I'm trying to do this. The first thing I do, it's a fun game. You should try it out. The first thing I do whenever I see somebody saying they can't hire people is I go to Instagram, only the most popular app for 18 to 25-year-olds. I don't know, maybe, people that are trying to get jobs or in police work. So if there's the first place I go, let's see if they have a police page. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Let's see if they have a recruiting page. 99% of the times they don't have a recruiting account. So it's like, are you even trying? You're not even trying. That's where your
But
applicants
Tom,
are.
but they're on all the job boards. I mean, come on. You have to
Right.
go to page 24 on the job board to find it, but they're on the job boards, right?
Right. And that's, job boards are great. I found my job on 20 years ago in 2004. I found my job on a job board.
Well, Tom,
I
I
would
gotta I
never
gotta
look on a
tell you,
job
man,
board.
you really crack me up online. I want to tell everyone to follow you on LinkedIn, and we'll give all your socials in a minute. But I love what you do because I see these because obviously we're connected on there, and some department will have a nice little flyer, right? We're hiring.
Yeah.
And you, unlike me, who just goes, "You're an idiot. What are you doing?" You just go and you say, "Good luck with the recruiting campaign" on every one
Yeah.
of them. What are you
Right.
doing there? Are you just are you needling them a little bit, or are you truly that positive of a person to do that?
Yeah. It's positivity. Um,
Well,
one of
positivity
the
won't
one
hire anybody, will it? It's not going to
Right.
hire anybody.
And I know full well when I see those flyers with a million words, nobody's reading that. You're
No,
scrolling right
no.
on by.
I
I've
mean,
done
you read
videos
them.
talking
We read
about
them
that.
because we're
Right.
cops. We want to know what they're
Right.
getting paid or the benefits, but no one
Right.
else is reading them.
No one else is reading those, but it is one of my pillars of this company when I started was positivity. There's so much negativity in law enforcement,
Yeah.
and as you know, there's two things that cops like, and it's change in the way things are. So that just breeds negativity. So I just want to be positive, and I feel bad that they're trying. So that's the thing is I see agencies trying, and that's why I comment, because you're trying. You're putting a post out on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Instagram or wherever that you're at. You're trying. You're putting this post. It's not working, but
Yeah.
you're giving it a go. So I just want to try to encourage you and say, hey, I saw your ad. Just keep going, keep doing it. The
Well,
problem
listen,
is with those is they put it out one time and then you never hear from them
yeah,
again.
I mean, I'm envious because I love that attitude that you have. I think we could all use more of that. And it always lifts me up when I see it, even though I'm thinking Tom knows full well this isn't going to work. He's just being super positive. So
Right.
let's get back to the scam artists. I will be nice about it. I'll just call them scam
Okay.
artists at these marketing companies that are just doing their job. I mean, listen,
Sure.
good for them. If you can be a multi-million dollar company, taking
Yeah.
people's money and not solving a problem, solving a solution. But there's no doubt that these agencies are getting nonstop calls and contacts from these companies saying we can fix your problem.
Yeah.
What could you tell an agency how they could vet them? Like what could they look at if they get these random emails or phone calls where they can vet them to make sure that they could actually work? What would you have them do?
Ask one simple question. And that question is, I don't have a budget for recruiting. What can you do for me?
That's good. That's nice. Yeah, and I will parlay that in because I'm involved with Safeguard Recruiting that has actually done a lot of recruiting campaigns. They can put a dollar figure to applicants because they've done so
Yeah.
many campaigns. So ask them. You can also ask them if it gets down to it. Okay, give us your case studies on the last 5 or 10 departments on what it costs for a lead and what it costs
Yeah.
for a recruit. Marketing
Right.
companies won't do that because, as you know, Tom, it's about clicks to a website, right?
Yeah.
It's not about people, it's about clicks. And so
Right.
they're either not going to answer or the number they're going to come up with is going to be extreme. Like, for instance, a $300,000 campaign, Yeah, they may be able to get them some applicants for $45,000 an applicant, right? I mean, it's going to be
Right.
crazy money. So that's the difference really in marketing and recruiting. Marketing will promise web clicks. Recruiters are going to promise people. And what is
Right.
amazing to me in law enforcement, we understand this when we're hiring executives. I see the recruiting firms, the headhunters. I've been contacted by some that are out looking for chiefs or assistant chiefs or captains, recruiting firms. They don't use marketing for that. So they're going out and they are using recruiting to pull in executives, but they haven't figured out that, hey, maybe we should do the same thing with officers.
Right.
Pretty
Right.
wild, is it not?
Yes, it is.
So let
It
me ask you
truly
this,
is.
Tom. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we both are in agreement. It's an educational issue, and I've been working for a
Yeah.
couple of years just trying to educate people, and I'm so glad I found you because you are as well. There's not a lot of us out here trying to do that, and it must feel weird to sort of know a solution to a huge problem that nobody else is talking about. How does that feel
Yeah.
to know that, man, I know I have the answer, but not a lot of people are listening because they're still
It,
spending crazy money on marketing?
right. It's a struggle every single day. It
Yeah,
really is.
yeah,
It's just a mental struggle, and that sums it up perfectly. I often say those exact same words. It's like to know I have the solution, and no one knows.
right.
No one knows to say, hey, wait a minute, let's do
So
that.
I want to bring out your super positive attitude here. So there's
Yeah.
going to be a fork in the road down the line. I mean, eventually departments are going to have to figure out that this video stuff and website stuff isn't working. And I've seen a few
Hmm.
bids come out where they did that a few years ago. Their recruiting actually went down and they put out another bid. In fact, one crazy bid, I won't name the city. Uh, they did it in 2021. They spent crazy money on website and video. Their recruiting went down and they did a bid and they picked another marketing firm to do another website and video because they said, "Oh, our video needs to be." So it's like imposter syndrome. I've seen that, but I've also seen some departments that have figured this out that have now decided they need to actually look for recruiting, but that's not the majority. Do
Yeah.
you see departments eventually figuring this out? And then obviously, Tom, you're going to be sitting pretty when they do because you're like the only dude out there talking about it.
Right. Yeah. I 100% see it. I have a vision, and we're going to change the face of police recruiting forever.
Great.
That's my mission: is to change the way police departments recruit, so we can restore the future of this profession we're in. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sleep until we do it.
Well,
Putting
we
out content all the time, got things in development, and I just want to help. I see the injustices just like you do. To me, it's insane that somebody would spend, you know, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 just on Minneapolis, nine hundred
I
seventy-five
saw that
thousand dollars,
for for a
almost a
commercial
million
campaign.
dollars.
A commercial campaign. And Tom, I want to tell our audience that maybe hasn't listened to either one of us yet. I'll give you
Yeah.
just one example of Safeguard who I'm involved with because I'm not an owner, but I just like you, they have the answer, and I want to help the profession. Their
Yeah.
last campaign, $27 per applicant. Because their processes are right. I mean,
Mhm.
they go get the recruits, they send the recruits to the marketing to retain them, and it was $27 per applicant, meaning the department that's down 10 officers, you're $300 and done, man. I mean, and so when we talk about these departments spending 300,000, that's what we're talking about
Yeah.
for something that won't work. And but the process has to be in place, and you're a big process guy, Tom. And so
Yeah.
if someone's listening to this and man, they just need a quick advice on how to kind of get started, what would you tell them?
Is you got to have it's my recruiting map, is what I like to call it, MAP. You got to have the right mindset, you got to have the right assets and the right places. That's the way to do this as you go through. So first of all, mindset wise, Travis, is you got to believe you can. You have to
Yeah.
believe that A, people want to do this job. B, you can find them. C, you can get them through your process and hire them. There's a ton of agencies, we talked about this a couple of times already, right, who just they throw their hands up. No one wants to do this anymore. I see posts on LinkedIn all the time from chiefs and deputy sheriffs and commanders and lieutenants. Just nobody wants to do it. We opened up, nobody wants to do it. It's just you're already defeated, you haven't even tried. So
Yeah.
first is you got to have the right mindset, right? And then, like I said, those assets, you got to have the right assets in place. You need a recruiting team. You need background investigators. You need a plan. And then in the places, you got to have the right places. So that's where the plan comes in. Where am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Where am I going to, if you want to go to a job fair, again, I've been to 2 job fairs in 2 years, but if that's your thing, then figure out which ones you want to go to and go to
Right.
them, right? But when you're there, have something to talk about other than here's a flyer and here's this, right? You gotta get people interested in your agency.
Well, I think you nailed it. There are plenty of people that want to do this job, but
Yeah,
they're not like we were 20, 30 years ago where we would make an application and just sit around and wait 9 months and not hear anything because
right,
they didn't have to let us know. They had so many applications and it was
right.
on us to get hired, not the agency. So it
Yeah,
has to be a mindset shift, so to speak, a different philosophy. And Tom, I'm so thankful that you get it. In fact, when I found you, I was so relieved because I thought I was almost crazy. I mean, I'm sitting there watching the climate out here. I mean, I'm at my own department staff meeting and they're bragging about this $60,000 marketing campaign and they're bragging about website hits. And everyone's like, "Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome." And I'm like, how many candidates did you get for that? I mean,
right,
they can't answer me because there's no tracking because it's not a recruiting campaign. And,
right,
and they just act like I was the crazy one, right? Because
right.
what are you talking about? People are going to our website. Well, nobody ever went to a police department because they saw a website. I've been asking for years
Never.
in my seminars, who's at your agency because you saw a website or video? Nobody. In fact,
Right, zero
Washington,
people.
D.C. Metro, you probably saw this on Police One. They named their recruiting video the recruiting video of the year.
I
They're
did.
at the lowest staffing in history. And no one's
Right.
putting this together, right? I'm like, wow. And so I don't want people to think we're bashing videos and websites. I think marketing and branding is great, but it's not a source for recruiting. And I just love that I love the fact, very rare, Tom, does somebody get to actually know a solution to something.
Yeah,
And because there's literally no competition. There's no one else really talking about this. Really, I mean, you are, and I talk about it once in a while. Safeguard is obviously talking about it, but you get it, you understand it. I'm so thankful that you're not just keeping this within your own agency for success. You're trying to help others, and I mean, that's just to me, that's a game changer. It's the power of one, and I do believe, without a doubt, you are going to change the face of recruiting, Tom. Your mission is more important than any mission I can think of right now.
yeah. It's I'm very passionate about it, and it's something that um, I say this a lot, and I'll say it again too. So if anybody's seen me, they probably sound like a broken record right now, but I don't care. I'm going to keep saying it. Right? Recruiting is not hard. It's just different.
Yeah,
Here in 2024, it's not hard at all. It's just different, and we have to change. We have to adapt. Those techniques that worked in 2015 aren't working anymore. Those videos and products that all these people are trying to sell you and to pitch to you. And I just saw somebody on LinkedIn was talking about some agency in Canada was doing television ads, and TV ads are the best. Like, I wouldn't waste a single penny in television. You talk about spaghetti on the
well,
wall. You have no idea who's
yeah,
watching that
I'm
channel,
seeing
and
a
the
lot of the
chances that
I'm
that
seeing a
person
lot
at
of
that
the
time wants to be a cop.
yeah, I'm seeing a lot of the contracts now that these marketing companies that are winning contracts and they're talking about we're going to put you on Hulu and YouTube and of
Right,
course to an executive, oh wow, that's cool. Well, what an
right.
executive thinks is cool isn't going to work for actual recruiting. In fact, Tom, recruiting isn't that sexy, right? It's just a grind, it's hard work, it's the right ideology to make it happen.
Yeah, it is, and it's we with us, I talked about like our job fairs and all that. We don't have billboards, we don't have advertisements, we don't have bus bench ads, or like I said, a recruiting video. We've never had a recruiting video in 11 years. Again, we don't do any of that stuff. Right? We're just simply where people are.
Yeah.
That's what we do, and we build relationship with them. So as part of my job, and I get my coworkers make fun of me because they just think that I'm sitting around chatting with people on Instagram, but I'm constantly answering messages in our chat room on Instagram and having conversations and answering questions. That's recruiting. Right? That's what it's all
Yeah.
about. It's just at a different place now.
Yeah, it's no different than someone used to walk up to the job booth or walk into your office at the department and ask you questions. You're just having to go to a different place. So that hasn't
Yeah.
changed, but how we do it has changed. And I think oftentimes, Tom, we think that we can just hire a company, it's a one-stop shop and we can walk away. But successful recruiting, you just described it. It's a constant monitoring of your campaign to see what works, see what doesn't work. It's a constant relationship building with those that are interested, because someone may say they're interested, but you still have to, like you always had to, talk to them and get them to that app through that application process. And that's really where these marketing firms really fail, because they just throw it out there and that's it. And
Right.
you have to, I just know from my experience with Safeguard, you have to monitor these campaigns daily and have constant communication with those candidates to get them through that process.
Yeah, but post and hope is
Yeah.
what I like to call
Yeah.
it, right? And a lot of agencies do it. They just make a post and they hope it works. And yeah, I guess we'll check back in 3 days and see how it went.
Yeah.
And a lot of them um, focus on, and it's because they're being sold, much like what you were talking about, how these companies talk about clicks on the website and likes, and oh, we'll get you so many, we'll do this video, it's going to get this many likes. The vanity metrics, as I
Yeah.
like to call them,
Yeah.
right? It's all the, oh, somebody shared my video and they liked it. I couldn't care less if somebody shared or liked the
Right.
video. Did you see it? Are you sending me a message? Or are you applying? That's
Yeah.
what I care about. um,
Yeah.
and all the other things really doesn't matter. And people are trying to go viral, and there's all kind of things that it's like, I don't know. I have no idea why. I saw an article by somebody in recruiting not too long ago, was talking about, here's how you go viral. And I'm like, why on earth would you
Right.
want to go viral? Why
Yeah.
would I want my ad going out to hundreds of thousands of people who aren't interested in my
Yeah.
agency or being a police officer for that matter?
Right.
I need targeted. I need
Yeah.
people who are interested and want to work for me, not anybody else,
Yeah.
but for me.
You
Yeah.
did a really great job in this interview of Tom of not telling anybody where you worked, and I think that's a good plan. When I was on my agency, I would try to do that as well. But I will tell you, I was in your area recently, and of course, Phoenix PD. That's not where you are, but Phoenix PD is
Yeah.
about 24-25% down in staffing, with a significant portion of people about to retire in the coming years. And I saw all the billboards
Yeah.
for Phoenix PD. And listen, I shouldn't have an interest in Phoenix PD staffing, but I have an interest in public safety. And so I
Yeah.
reached out to the recruiting team, even a few politicians, and I said, hey, this is not going to work. You know, if you're interested at all, I'll be happy to talk to you. I even know a guy close by that'd be happy to come by and talk to you. I did the same thing in Louisiana. The governor recently put out an executive. He declared a state of emergency for police staff in the
Yeah.
state of Louisiana. So I reached out to the governor. I reached out to a bunch of police executives there. I said, listen, I'll be on your front door tomorrow. I live close by there. I'm not asking for any money. I just want to help you. No one ever responds back. No one ever responds back. And it just blows my mind, because I wonder, do they really want to fix it, or do they just not want to admit that what they're doing isn't working?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter,
Yeah,
and
because
it's
the billboards
because
look
it's
great,
just,
Tom. I mean, those
yeah,
billboards
they
look
look great,
great,
and
LED
it's
and great
right.
pictures, and they like it when they see it. But I wonder
Yeah,
if anybody's sitting back going, how come our recruiting's not getting better?
right, right, and so I saw the same billboards, as obviously we're neighboring, but so they're everywhere. They're
Yeah,
all over the place. So you know what we did is we spent a couple $100, and I made these giant banners. I got them from a cheapo printing place, and they look great. And we put them up on all of our stations and at City Hall. Same effect as the billboard for not a monthly fee. It was a couple $100.
yeah,
And we get comments all the time. I saw your billboard. That's what I saw, your banner on City Hall or at the Foothill Station or wherever. And that's what got me to apply. And again, you don't need all of these big fancy solutions. It's so much simpler than that. And it's not our banners that we put up, right? That's not what is driving recruiting, right? So it's less than 5 people who have come here because they saw that, right? It's
right.
just that getting in and building that relationship with people. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle, is doing that. But I think you're right. It's just like, you spent this money, and it's big dollars, $300,000. That's a lot of taxpayer money that you got to account for. And it didn't work. And again, you're mesmerized by how pretty it looks and how awesome it is. So you're left with no other choice. And that's kind of the hook of it all for these companies as they come in, is what I talked about in the beginning, right? Is that's what they deliver. They're selling you a nice looking product that you're mesmerized, but it couldn't have possibly been that didn't work. It's something else. It has to be
Yeah.
something else. and you just fall into this trap, and you're out of answers. And that's what I see a lot of places too. They're just out of answers, and that's awful.
Yeah, Tom Sy, you are doing the Lord's work, man. I really appreciate your passion and your positivity. The police cop marketer. Where could people find you? Where could they? Because I know you've got some training coming out that I highly recommend. Where could they find all of that stuff so you can so you can help them?
Yeah, so my website is forcopstraining.com. That's FOR. There's not four of us. FOR copstraining.com. And you can get all the info about me and some of the training that I got coming out here really soon, which I'm super excited about, to start getting agencies on the right path. Like we just talked about, it's the road to better recruiting, not to plug my stuff, but and we got that coming up. But and then I'm on social media as well, at Four Cops Training, on pretty much everywhere, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, which is now X, and even TikTok. On TikTok, people like it on there. And then on LinkedIn, it's Tom-Sy. Is where you can find me on there, and I'm constantly on LinkedIn, always having conversations. We've spoke on there several times, and that's a great platform for making connections and learning things. So if you're looking for a great place to start, that's a great place to get ideas and to learn from other people doing this.
Great stuff, Tom Sy. I can't thank you enough, and thank you for listening. And just remember, lead on and stay courageous.